Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation, where right and left come to be reasonable. The president is supposed to speak during our show from the Iowa State Fairgrounds. Let's see how he explains how this controversial budget bill that just passed, he's going to sign it tomorrow, helps you, helps the many, helps those who need it most. He's also going to mention the 250-year anniversary of the military. Now, the country turns 250 years next year. So how is the Army this year? Because the Continental Army actually formed a year before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Fun fact for you. Anyway, I'll tell you what we need is a pep talk as we head into the holiday. The 4th is here, and let's be honest, more are excited about like time off and parties than anything to do with patriotism. Only a little more than half of us consider themselves very or extremely proud to be an American. 20 years ago, it was over 90%. Now, of course, 20 years ago, that was in the wake of 9/11. But this begs the question of whether that's what it takes to unify the two sides in America. A major crisis, bigger even than COVID, which did the opposite, right? It created disunity, added to the division. Is that what it takes to stop the game of party politics, to remind us that we share more than what divides us? We are in extreme times, and much of it is negative. For the partisans, it is clearly party first. And if they are not in power, they are dour. With Trump in power, you got 90+% of Republicans saying they're very proud. Only 36% of Democrats. Now, before you say, yeah, that's because the right is more patriotic. No, you're not. You're just in power. When you flip it, the dynamic nearly flips. Okay, it's not as extreme as it is now. But we're also in really extreme times. And generationally, we also have a problem. It seems that the belief in America ends with me and my generation, X. Only 40% of Gen Z say they're very or extremely proud to be American. 70 to 80% of us, Gen X, baby boomers, proud to be American. I guess it's because we remember harder things. But I don't think there has to be a huge crisis to change the situation from constant division to common concern. I believe better times can start with you, with me, and just being real about reality. You don't got to feel one way or another about it. You just have to get it right. Trump's bill may be crossing a Rubicon that leads to real revolt. That's my concern. All right, it's not about Trump getting a win or not, or the left or the right. I think the parties are the problem, and I do not believe in either, nor the system they inhabit and corrupt. But this bill arguably sends a message that MAGA stands for Make the Affluent Great Again. The main defense of this bill is that you got to secure the tax cuts. Otherwise, we're going to have a recession. If that's true, why is the economy stressing the way it is right now with the cuts in place? Last month, we added 147,000 jobs, lower than the monthly average of jobs created last year, about 170. The private sector only added 74,000 jobs. Now, these are BLS stats. Okay, this is from the administration, not the ones that came out yesterday that showed negative growth. These are their numbers, but they're also deceptive. The number of new jobs were unusually concentrated in state and local government sectors that can't be replicated. And it also reveals a new pressure on small businesses. They are not helped in the new tax bill the way big companies are. And they are hit hardest by the immigration crackdowns, the tariff whiplash, and dropping consumer confidence. We also see stress in big companies despite all the important, the all-important low corporate tax rate. If this tax rate is so fundamental, then why are Walmart, Disney, Microsoft, Morgan Stanley, Warner Brothers, Amazon, Procter & Gamble, Kohl's, all cutting jobs bigly? 745,000 job cuts nationwide announced already. It's the highest level of layoffs since the pandemic. Why? If the cuts are the key. This is all indicative of an inconvenient truth. Tax cuts are not magic. They help those who get them, but they don't automatically drive overall economic growth. They can often do the opposite. A recent nonpartisan analysis found that tax cuts didn't do either, trickling down or helping with the growth of the economy in 81, 2001, 2003, and not in 2017. Why do I enunciate? Because the administration would have you believe that the tax cuts were a huge boon to everybody in the first administration. They promised that the cuts would push economic growth above 4%. Look it up. It never went above 3 for 2018 and 2019, pre-COVID. And remember, Trump did not inherit a bad economy. He inherited a good economy. And it also didn't create jobs. Okay? 84% of companies reported they did not increase hiring because of the tax cuts. Why would they lie? The annual deficit increased $400 billion in those years, 2017 to 2019. Before COVID, deficit spending hit. Again, it's not about COVID. They did not pay for themselves. So this bill is a double whammy. It helps most those who need it least and helps least those who need it most. More than 50 cents of every dollar from the tax cuts go to the top 10%. Okay? That's according to the Tax Policy Center. The bottom 20% only see their incomes rise about 0.5%. The middle 20% see their incomes rise about 1.7%. The top 20 see their incomes rise 3%. The top 1%, 5%. Now you can say, well, hey, it's better than nothing. No, not when the savings do so little to help you close the gap on affordability, on the debt crisis that so many families in this country are dealing with. Okay? Not when it doesn't make a difference. But the real problem is that who and how do we pay for this reduction in revenue? Okay? The spending cuts the president promised were going to help go after the big and not the small. Despite all that BS about Doge and how Musk was going to find all the inefficiencies and fraud and billions and trillions, and it turns out, you know what they're really cutting? Not defense, not their pet projects. They're cutting from the poor, many of whom voted for this president to avoid exactly this, the system working against them. The biggest cut to the social safety net ever in decades, cutting by over $1 trillion to Medicaid, SNAP, and Obamacare. And no, I do not accept the sell that, oh, no, hold on. We're just making sure that no illegals are getting it and that all these lazy people, which is, come on, it's code, right? It's code. All these lazy poor people just work, you know? A majority on Medicaid are working, or they have a reason to be exempt, all right? With these work requirements, millions won't be exempt. And they are already having trouble finding work. Remember, we're at near full employment. The unemployment rate is ridiculously low. Only 2 to 3% say they don't have a job because they don't want a job. So that's not what it's about. You don't throw 12 million people off for that kind of incremental savings, right? And you know what? The reporting rules have a history. We've seen it in different states like Arkansas, where when you put these requirements in, people don't get the paperwork right, and you wind up punishing people who don't deserve it. And you're going to punish rural hospitals that oversample Trump voters. Why do they get screwed? Because they serve a larger share of people on Medicaid than urban hospitals in blue states, specifically in births. Did you know over 50% of births at rural hospitals are funded by Medicaid? And about 40% in urban hospitals. So you see, they oversample in the rural. He's going to hurt the rural more. And this is where his voters are. And these hospitals are already getting killed because of all these changes to Medicaid. And it's going to really lead to hospital closures in places where you don't have a ton of hospitals to begin with. And yes, you'll hear, no, we're taking care of that $50 billion fund. Listen, the estimates are that it's off by 100%, that it would be at least $100 billion to keep it where it is right now. Now, are there good things in the bill? Of course. It's like 1 million pages. Keeping middle-class tax cuts is good. Same with the new deductions for tipped and overtime workers. I don't like the 25 grand cap, but hey, it's better than nothing. Perhaps giving the $150 billion to immigration enforcement will end up being a good thing. Look, I don't get the need for this large-scale deportation. I really don't. You want to go after the bad guys? Everybody's for that. You want to go after people who are needed on farms and in places the president keeps going back and forth about it because you know it's wrong. So many communities are going to be adversely affected from people that may have entered the wrong way, but since then they've done everything right. And do we really need, look, I know that ICE needs more resources and they need places to hold people so that they can give them due process in a humane fashion. But do we really need an immigration enforcement agency with a budget that's bigger than most countries' militaries. Like real countries, like Israel, Italy. Really? Between all the extreme talk and the violence that partisan extremism has spawned, these fringe movements overtaking the parties, making collaboration a sin, division a demand of the day, I want you to think about something. I don't know that we passed the test. I want you to think about it this weekend. Do we pass the test of the preamble to the Declaration of Independence that we celebrate this weekend? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You really think we're getting that right now? Think about it. Do you really think that we're treating people equally under the law, culturally, in terms of resources, respect, that life, liberty, that freedom, that the ability to get ahead and do something in this country, do you really believe that those are being protected or exploited? Next line. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Is that how we're living? Is it really about you? Ever, except when you're getting screwed? That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government. I wish the framers, the founders, had said through elections, but they didn't. And that's why I have a warning. I'm not calling out these fringe populist movements because they are inherently all bad. I think they're extreme. I think their remedies are not reasonable. I think the righteousness of the cause is there. I think the grievance is real. The people who are upset, disaffected, disillusioned, upset about affordability, a system that is clearly rigged against them, that's all true. But what are the remedies? I think the remedies take us in the wrong direction. And that's not unusual. But I'm telling you, this bill is a message. And you don't have Democrats and Republicans anymore. You got people who are angry and desperate on the right, and you got people who are angry and desperate on the left. And when they see that they are getting screwed again and lied to about it in favor of people who don't need the help and having the few services that they need to depend on taken from them, you can expect harder times ahead. Now, that said, thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.